going on, guys? It is time for another reaction video, and today I'm going to be reacting to 10 things in British culture impossible to explain to non-Brits. Curious to see if there's any new ones in here that I haven't seen before or not. Let's get into it.
I love to laugh.
Toast, I've been meaning to talk to you.
You're talking to me now?
Yes. It's about the sense of humour issue.
I have a terrific sense of humour. It's just very dry.
Welcome to Watch Mojo UK, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 things in British culture impossible to explain to non-Brits.
It's not quite nasal enough the way you're doing it, all right? You're not doing it the way he speaks. You're not doing it with the kind of... And you don't do the broken voice, but it gets very emotional.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our...
I don't know if that interesting opening part right there that he just said was supposed to make some sort of sense or is relative to, I guess, this whole thing, but whatever he just said made no sense to me whatsoever. So I don't know if that's what we're already off on the start. I didn't comprehend any of that.
our latest videos.
For this list, we'll be looking at a few causes of cultural confusion that are unique to the small island we call home. What do you find weird about the UK? Let us know in the comments. Number 10. Marmite. A dark brown savoury spread invented in the late 19th century and made from yeast extract sludge left over from brewing beer. Sounds yummy. Well, actually, it doesn't. But Marmite fans know the very real joy it can bring when spread thinly on hot buttered toast, with a fresh brewed cup of tea to balance out the salty flavour.
From my understanding, this is something that is a very acquired taste, and most people that like it is because you started eating it as a child and grew to enjoy it. But if you've never had it before, I understand that it's supposed to be quite foul or very strong in taste. But I've yet to try it, so I don't know. Maybe that's a video I do. Should I try Marmite? Should I do a video of me doing a taste test of that? And what's the one in Australia? Is it Vegemite? Is that something similar? Neither of them sound appealing to me. But if you guys want to see it, maybe I'll do it. You let me know in the comments.
Doesn't take long before new recruit Callum Howe finds another jar in a shocking state.
Oh no.
What's the matter?
It's baby one.
Okay, don't panic.
It's not been used in months.
Not all Brits feel the same though, and Marmite is famously marketed as a polarising food that you either love or hate. The proper stuff is only manufactured in the UK in the Burton-on-Trent Marmite factory. It's been there since 1902 and produces roughly 50 million jars in a year. And no, Australia, Vegemite is not as good.
Oh, there goes the answer to my question. I guess it's similar, but not the same. And 50 million jars a year. You can't say love it or hate it. Apparently people love it if they're making 50 million jars a year. That's a lot. That's a whole lot.
Number 9. Public schools are private schools.
Settle down.
You'll often hear it said that our country is run by public school boys. However, this doesn't mean what it might in other parts of the world. It doesn't imply that these politicians went to state-funded institutions and pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. It suggests that they were born into extreme privilege and attended some of the most prestigious fee-paying schools in the world. In the UK, we refer to schools for the general public as state schools, and private schools for the wealthy as public schools or independent schools. Except, not all private schools are called public schools.
That's so weird, the transverse of the word of private and public meaning the opposite of one another. That's, I don't know, it just seems backwards.
Some do actually call themselves private schools, and most call themselves charities too. Registered charities. Confused yet? No more than you should be. Number 8. Insults are our love language. Terms of affection and endearment are different the world over. In the UK, you know that someone feels comfortable around you.
So they keep showing this clip of this video. I'm not familiar with this, so tell me, is this a popular movie or TV show or something? Where does this clip from? I'm just curious.
if they insult you to your face. Or they might just be rude.
They're not jokes as such, they're just little things to say.
I guess Toast of London is what it's from. I'm asking the questions before just waiting for the answers.
Yeah, it's probably fine in the hands of taxi drivers, or cockneys, or even Geordies.
When you've lived here long enough, you'll learn to tell the difference. Sarcasm may be the lowest form of wit, but it's also a great tool for masking social awkwardness. It stops conversations becoming too serious, and fends off the Brits' greatest fear, earnestness. We spend so much time being generally polite, no one wants to put that wall up around their own friends and family.
You know what you are? You're a big bag of shit!
It doesn't mean we love each other any less, but where's the fun in life without some friendly teasing? Deadpan delivery required, of course. Number 7. Town names and their pronunciation. British place names are famously difficult for tourists to get their head around. Even native-born Brits will get tripped up at some point.
Shitterton and Bitchfield. Boy, if you would have a heyday with those here. Although we have a lot of crazy named places here in the U.S., I know for sure. Do you know there's a Paris, Texas, and a Las Vegas, New Mexico?
The English language has a checkered history. You can blame most of the confusion on the Romans, Anglo-Saxons, and the Vikings. Also the French and the Celts. Being able to pronounce the name of Welsh village...
I was just about to ask about this one. Super duper duper long name. I've seen this one before. Let's see if he says it.
has even become something of a party piece.
Up the road from the temperature got to...
That's like trying to say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, but I think supercalifragilisticexpialidocious is actually probably a million times more easy than saying whatever that says. I can't even try to sound that out.
21 Celsius.
When you take pronunciation out of the equation, however, there are still a lot of place names that sound like somebody might be having you on. From Fatty Head to Scratchy Bottom, there are oddly named towns in every corner of the British Isles. Number 6. The variety of accents.
When it gets loudly, it gets very loud indeed. It gets very specific. It's not quite nasal enough the way you're doing it, all right? You're not doing it the way he speaks.
Every country has its own differences in dialect and accent, even if it's difficult for an outsider to hear the nuance. But for such a small place, the UK does seem to have a disproportionate amount of variety. For a long time, a British accent was generally thought of as standard received pronunciation. But with the world opening up, regional accents are gradually becoming more familiar to foreign ears.
What I'm saying is that, like, if they had themselves proper jobs, you know, for a gantil, then they wouldn't date. You know, a lot of them's from broken homes.
That was just a noise.
If you were to ask me where the different accents are from, I couldn't tell you at all. But consuming a lot more television and movies and YouTube these days, I've definitely been exposed to a lot more accents, and then growing up with the British grandmother who had a very thick, well, I don't know if it was really thick, but she still had her British accent, and she'd been here probably 50 years before she passed. I think that she lived in the US after leaving England, so her British accent was still very apparent even after that amount of time here in the US. But maybe that's also why I have a somewhat easier time understanding British accents from time to time, because I grew up with a grandmother that had one. But that being said, I've done reaction videos to Rin, and sometimes I have a really difficult time understanding some of the things he says because his accent is so thick. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, I definitely recognize that there's a lot of different British accents, just the same as there's a lot of different accents here in the US.
A Glasgow accent is very different from a Newcastle accent, which is different from a Birmingham accent.
You're a good man. And a good soldier.
If you haven't watched that series, it's a great series. I really, really enjoyed watching Peaky Blinders.
People in the countryside don't sound the same as those in the town. Some people in Wales and Scotland even speak a whole different language. And nobody speaks like Dick Van Dyke. Bless him.
All right, I'll do it myself.
Number 5. Hot and cold taps. There are a few questions that non-natives tend to have about British bathrooms. The no-plugs thing is clearly a health and safety issue. The carpets are about keeping warm, but separate taps for hot and cold, they're a bit more difficult to justify. We do have our reasons, they're just not really relevant anymore. Historically, cold water came from the mains and was safe to drink.
I'm quite all right, Barbara. I ran it under a cold tap.
Hot water was a later addition to UK households. When it did arrive, it was usually heated in a tank in the loft, therefore it wasn't as fresh. Modern bathrooms do sometimes have mixer taps, they've just not really caught on yet.
It's kind of, I mean, I get it because even here in the States, like really dated fixtures in some places will still have separate ones. Like, I mean, you have to really search hard to find them. But it's strange because it seems that the only way you could get like a medium temperature of the hot and cold mixed would be to fill the sink. And at that point, how much water have you wasted? And then I feel like when you wash your hands with warm or hot water, you're going to get rid of more germs and what have you than cold water. I don't know. It's just something I'm used to here, though. You know, like I never just go cold or just hot when I'm washing my hands. The only time I go cold only is if I'm brushing my teeth. But is it just that way in the sinks, though? What about in your showers, in your bathtubs? Is it mixed into one in the sink, in the bathtubs and showers? If it is, then that would make more sense. I can understand it just being on the sinks only. And is it only in bathroom sinks that it's that way? What about your kitchen sinks? Does your kitchen sink funnel down to a single faucet, or are those also separate?
Number 4. The tea obsession. No, Britain is not the only country to enjoy a nice cup of tea.
Do you know, I can't remember the last time I had a good cup of chai.
But we are quite singular in the way we take it. It's possibly only the Irish who also understand this one. For the real tea drinker, you must understand this is not just a casual beverage. It is usually an addiction, begun in late childhood. A cup of tea can be a consolation, an offer of friendship, or a gauge of how long a visitor is going to stay. When a British person says tea, they do not mean chamomile or green or iced, they mean English breakfast. Usually with milk and often with sugar. And please, don't leave the tea bag in the cup.
Tea Earl Grey hot.
Number 3. Metric or imperial. The UK officially adopted the metric system in 1965. That's over 50 years ago. It's what they use in Europe. It's what we learn in school. It's a much simpler way of working things out, as you're working with units of 10, not 12. So why do we still weigh ourselves in pounds and stone? Measure our height in feet and inches? Travel in miles? Buy beer and milk in pints? The older generation will occasionally still tell you the temperature in Fahrenheit. Shouldn't we have acclimatized by now? No one under the age of 70 grew up under the imperial system. Good luck explaining this to anyone outside Britain, because it makes no sense at all.
We use a mix of certain things. It's kind of weird sometimes. So like our milk is usually in gallons, but our sodas are usually in liters. And then you don't really say pints here. Like maybe if you go to a pub, somebody might refer to it as a pint, but you wouldn't really typically hear that here. And then obviously we use miles instead of kilometers. We use feet and inches instead of meters and centimeters, so we're not doing the metric. And I don't know if teaspoons and tablespoons are metric or imperial, one or the other. Somebody tell me. I don't even know if there's a different, like if those apply to either of those or those are just kind of separate from all that. But yeah, we don't really use metric here very much. Like I do get that it would be easier and it makes more sense, but I think there's a lot of factors here in the US. It's like the cost of switching all these things like rulers and computer softwares within vehicle. I mean, the logistics of doing a full switchover would be so expensive and timely as well to accomplish something like that. So like if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like we just leave it as is. And yeah, so I mean it would be nice if the entire world was on the same system, but It is what it is, but it seems like over there in England it's just as mixed here as it is here.
Number 2, baked beans for breakfast. British food has never had a great reputation with the rest of the world. We traditionally choose hearty, comforting food, and that's okay. We need it in our climate. However, if there's one British dish that visitors really can't fathom, it's the humble beans on toast.
It's not a new one to me because I've seen enough British content at this point, and I also watch Jolly quite often. If you guys don't know Josh and Ollie, Jolly, you got to go check out their YouTube channel. It's a lot of fun. There's nothing wrong with beans and toast. It just doesn't seem like a typical pairing here that you would think of in the US. But if it's originated out of a time of necessity for cost and surviving at some point, and that's where it came from, and then it kind of just stuck, then it makes sense. But I also see it as no different from throwing beans inside of a tortilla, right? And that would essentially be like a bean burrito or bean taco. You're just throwing it on bread instead of a tortilla, right? So not a huge difference, but it's just not that common, I don't think, really, to see beans as a breakfast item here either. I do want to try a full English sometime. I need to find a place locally that I can go try a full English breakfast, because it does look appetizing.
Baked beans are a staple for the average Brit. Usually eaten as part of a fried breakfast or as a quick snacky tea, sometimes they're just what you need. They are eaten elsewhere in the world, but you'd be more likely to find them at a barbecue than on a breakfast table. No one else has taken this simple convenience food to their hearts quite like us. Number 1. What is the country actually called? The United Kingdom, Great Britain, the British Isles. So which is it? Well, the British Isles is a geographical term. It describes a group of islands including Great Britain, the island of Ireland, the Isle of Man, the Scottish Isles, and the Scilly Isles. Great Britain is the biggest island in the group and is made up of England, Scotland, and Wales. The United Kingdom is a political union. Full name, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. It includes England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. The red, white, and blue flag is the Union flag, or Union Jack, and is composed of flags from England, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, but not Wales. Got it?
Do you agree with our pick?
It's not my first time seeing that breakdown of what everything is called, and I still don't get it. I'm not gonna lie, I watched an entire video that broke it all down, and I remember when I watched that video it made a little bit more sense, but I didn't retain it too well, so I'm not gonna pretend to understand it. That's why sometimes you'll hear me say England, British, sometimes you'll hear me say UK. It's because I don't really know the difference in all of them. I just know it's an area of the world and they all fall under the same umbrella to me. So yeah, that's just from an outsider's perspective. But what about you guys that live there? If you were to not live there, would you find it equally as confusing? Or is it just something that you've grown so used to because you're from there and you're already familiar with it? And I'm sure there's plenty of places here in the U.S. that probably have similar breakdowns, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. Anyways, I'm rambling. So if you enjoyed that video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here and you want to see more content from me, please subscribe and click that bell so you'll get notified every time I upload a new video. And I will see you guys in the next one. Later.